Welcome, everybody, to another great episode of the Beyond Normal podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Groom. We have a very special guest, Dr. Eko. She founded Glow Pediatrics, which it really focuses on having a quality in-home and virtual pediatric experience. Care in the home. Think about for all the parents out there, this is definitely a must listen. We appreciate Dr. Eko spending some time on this. I myself am a new parent, and so these types of topics, businesses that focus on this in general are really near and dear to me. So without further ado, I want to bring Dr. Eko to the stage. This episode is brought to you in partnership with Ascentum, which is an award-winning coaching practice that helps high-performing professionals advance and achieve the promotions and pay they deserve. Ascend to powerful heights with Ascentum. How's it going, Dr. Eko?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Appreciate you for coming on the platform. You're obviously a busy founder yourself, running your business. We know that's not easy. So definitely appreciate you spending a little bit of time with us today. So the very first question, on the platform that we like to get into, before you starting your business, tell us a little bit about, what was Dr. Eko doing before running her own business?
Okay, thank you again for having me. So Dr. Eko was working for hospitals. So I was working since I finished medical school and training, I've been worked for at least 3 hospitals now, doing that. And at some point, I realized that I really wanted to have a different life for myself and for my family. I wanted a life where I could control my schedule. I could be there for graduations. I could be there for holidays. I didn't have to be on call for 24 hours and leave the kids. I have 3 of them, and there's only so much time we have with our kids, right? So I decided to take a scary leap of faith and leave my employee position. And that's how I started Glow Pediatrics.
I love that story. I want to dig a little bit further. Let's go back even before you were a doctor. Like, what were you like as a kid? Was this a path that you knew that you were going to go down? Tell us a little bit about your story. Even before you got to that path, even before you went through the med school path, what was Dr. Eko like before she was a doctor?
So I was a really shy kid, and I knew from the age of 5, I wanted to be a pediatrician. So I also was the kid who would go into the doctor's offices and need 5 people to hold her down because she was terrified of needles. But go figure, here I am. So I decided I wanted to be a pediatrician because one of my friends died of an asthma. She had an asthma episode that was untreated for too long. And so she passed away when I was younger, growing up in Nigeria, and they didn't have the access to the medications that that's really in the US is like, it's so commonplace, right? So the little girl passed away, and from what I can remember, that's when I decided I wanted to be a pediatrician, notwithstanding all my fears about being in the hospital, my fears about needles, my fears about anybody in a white coat. I decided that in my mind. And so fast forward, came to the US to do undergrad. And then I had 2 car accidents in my junior year, like back to back, like exactly 6 months apart. So I had the second accident 6 months exactly, 6 months to the day when I had the first one. So because I had the 2 injuries and I had concussions both times, so I started not doing well in school. And I was a pre-med student, so I went from the A student to the DEF student. And so my parents were like, okay, we need to go figure out what's going on with you. So they sent me off to see a neuropsychologist who examined me and told me that, and asked me what I wanted to do. And I told him I've wanted to be a pediatrician since I was 5. And so the guy proceeds to tell me that I have injured my brain and I'm only average, which I'm not sure now what that has to do with brain injuries, but okay. That's what he had to say to me. And then he also told me he said these words, which I will never forget as long as I live. He said, "You will never go to medical school. I suggest you find something else to do." So he didn't say maybe you can get therapy and get better. No, he flat out told me, "You will never do the one thing I've always wanted to do." So, of course, I listened to him. He was the doctor, right? So I proceeded to really fail out of school that semester. Because in my head, it's like, oh, so you're not going to med school. You're no good as a student. So I believed him, and of course, I I failed out of college. So, but my parents were like, the next semester, they're like, "Oh no, you're absolutely going back to school. Doesn't matter what he said. You are a doctor." And so they kept telling me that every day. And was it easy? No, it was hard. It was hard. I did have to do therapy for a while. I struggled with taking tests and remembering things, but with my parents in my ear telling me I was a doctor and not letting me quit out of school, I kept at it and I got better, right? And I finished school, and fast forward, I went to medical school and training. And I am a pediatrician, regardless of what the doctor said. So that's an encouragement to anybody. Doesn't matter what goes on in your past, right? Your past doesn't define who you can be, and who, if you have a dream, just hold on to it. Yeah.
You dropping gems there, Dr. Eko. I appreciate that that candid story you opening up for us. You've overcome a lot. And then for somebody to tell you like you're not gonna do something and then you stick to it. It's always great to have people in your corner. Parents are some of the first cheerleaders we all have, right, in life, some of us. And so that's a very powerful story to tell. And so all right, let's get to you being a doctor, you're a pediatrician, you're doing what you want to do. What about that situation working within the system, not necessarily owning your business? Like, what was missing that led you to this point now where you have Glow Pediatrics, which is your own thing, your own baby, like your own thing to develop?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So after working as a pediatrician for over 10 years, I mean, somewhere along the line, I started asking questions about the way we treat children, especially children with like ADHD or children. And then I discovered how much trauma affects the brain, and that brought alive the whole my own brain story back to me again. And because I just had this affinity for learning about the brain, I couldn't figure it out because I was like, I'm not a neurologist, right? I'm not a brain doctor. Then I guess I had forgotten, or I had suppressed that memory about me having the brain injury and all of that. But that brought it right back. And I started asking questions about, why are we medicating kids like this, with kids with ADHD, and what exactly can we do different? And why don't we ask the questions we need to ask so we can really help children get better, not just medicate them? And so that led me on a journey to asking questions, and I did some additional training in integrative medicine. Basically, what that means is we take conventional medicine the way we are trained in medical school, but then there's also evidence-based training. Like, there are things that, for example, with ADHD, it's important to look at what's going on with the child's environment. Has the child been exposed to trauma? Because I have seen kids who've been traumatized act like they have ADHD. And if we don't ask the question, then we hit them with medication, which doesn't necessarily help them. But then the underlying problem is never, ever addressed. So I wanted to switch from just the medication point of view with the way we are trained. And that's not to say we don't ask questions, but I discovered there's more questions that we need to ask, right? And that's what led me to doing the TEDx talk I did on ADHD, about we need to change the way we treat children's ADHD, because there's millions of kids with ADHD, 6 million and counting, and it's increasing every day. So I felt like we needed to do something different. And yes, what I learned, I started implementing with my patients. The other thing that I learned was how important it was to really spend time with our parents, with my parents, especially the moms, right? Because that's who usually will come to the pediatrician. And I discovered that when I started spending more time, like asking moms, like, how are you really doing? Is there anything we can do to help you? Like addressing them, not just their child, that it made it made the whole family, I mean, the child did better, the parents did better, they felt like they were listened to, and it made for a better increased family bond, right? And helping that child grow in the best environment after I found out what environment can really do to you, right? And so, of course, what happens is I start spending too long with the patient, and I started getting into trouble for spending too long with my patients. So if you know anything about the way medicine is run, it's like your time. So it's like you have 15 minutes to be in this patient's room. Now, I was finding I would go into rooms and ask moms, how are you doing? And they would start crying. So of course, I'm not going to leave the crying mother and like, oh yeah, my 15 minutes is up and leave. But then I get backed up, right? And so I started finding that was increasingly happening. I couldn't spend long enough with the patient, and then the things I wanted to do to really get to what was going on with the child, I couldn't really do. And so I got to the point where I was like, okay, I need to just go figure out how to do this thing myself, right? On my own terms. And then I discovered the whole community of doctors, like on Facebook and on LinkedIn, doctors who were trying to do things differently for their patients and that really cared about their patients. And it doesn't mean if you're employed, you can't, but there's certain limitations. So that's really how I got to where I decided I was just going to, I mean, and of course, other things I'm not going to go into happened, which solidified it for me that I really just needed to go decide that I could do this on my own. And was it a leap of faith? For sure.
Yes.
Because it's like the unknown, right? I mean, I'm not a business person. I've just been trained in medicine, but I've discovered that I can learn anything I put my mind to. So yes, yeah.
So I'm curious, like, how was because you mentioned like the support of the family throughout your whole journey into becoming a doctor. What was it like? What has it been like? What is it currently like, kind of explaining to your family now that you're still a doctor, but you're a business owner? Like, do they really like grasp that idea, or is there some reservedness because you said that you wanted to be a doctor and you were doing that, now you want to do your own thing?
Oh, so from my bigger family, no. From my kids, they're happy to have mom around. And I call them my business partners. So, for example, I went for a speaking engagement to a school last week. I took my oldest daughter with me, and she took the photographs and she did the video. And she was so excited and proud of herself. But I see them as my partners. So I teach them what I'm learning, right? I talk to them about business. I talk to them about real estate, all the things I'm learning. I'm taking them along with me. So, and I think that's the way it should be as parents. It's not the school's job to educate our kids. It's our job. I mean, whatever you're doing, see your kids as your partners, and you'll be amazed. The bond between you and your kids will definitely grow stronger because they see that you are taking them along with you on your journey, and it's not like you're over there and I'm over here. So yeah.
So it sounds like you're grooming some future CEOs.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, I love to hear that. We all know we need more entrepreneurs. We need more people, like you called it, kind of taking that gamble on yourself. I over the past probably 60 plus episodes, I pretty much compare starting your own business to jumping off a cliff with a parachute, hopefully, but it is an experience that's not for everybody. And so you're dropping gems, Dr. Eko, gym after gym, but I want to take it to the next phase of the conversation. Get into you fully wearing your ownership hat of your business. There's things, obviously, it sounds like you being trained, as a doctor that may have helped you to start your own business, and you feel like you're equipped. Can you name one of those things for us? And then on the flip side of that, what's an area where you as just being a doctor, you didn't necessarily have the experience or the skill set in, where you had to maybe pull somebody in, pay somebody pay somebody, right? Pay others to fill that gap or do that for your business?
Yeah. Okay. So something that it was another doctor who described this is selling, right? So as doctors, we sell health.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at it from that, I didn't used to look at it like that. It's like, oh yeah, this is what I do. I just talk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you, so you need to do this for your child. So, oh, you need to take your kid to the dentist so their teeth don't fall out, because actually, if you don't take care of your teeth, you can have a brain, you can have a brain infection. And the kids are like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna brush my teeth, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're trained to sell, but not in the way you think of salespeople. And so a pediatrician colleague who's a coach, she kept saying that, Dr. Una, and she kept saying, no, you're trained, we already most amazing salespeople if we just think about it in that way. So it's like we're selling health to people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like fake health where we encourage people. We don't like, oh, we're not sleazy about it, because it's just, I mean, it is what it is,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're just telling you how you can your health can be improved. So I once I realized that made my having to talk to patients so much easier, or potential patients so much easier, because it wasn't like, oh no, I don't know how to sell. Because as an employed physician, you get so used to, oh, the patients are sitting there. All you have to do is show up and see them, right? Versus now you have
Mm-hmm.
your own practice. You actually have to go talk to these people and tell them what you do. So that was an experience. And so, in terms of something I didn't have the skills for, is more the financial and the marketing part, right? So, yes, I have invested in coaching, I've invested in training, just to help me figure out that whole sphere that I'm not used to. And I know it's a work in progress. So I decided I was
Mm-hmm.
going to do it afraid as I feel. And I feel
Yeah.
the fear every day, and I keep going because I've told myself that I'm not going backwards. So I'm not going back to being employed. I'm going to continue. Yeah. So
Got it. Got it. So you're an entrepreneur for life, is
yeah.
what I'm hearing from Dr. Echo. I love to hear that. And I want to go back to your strengths. So you mentioned the selling piece. Doctors definitely got to be the ones to sell, like, hey, take this. Here's why you need to take this medicine. Here's why you need to do these exercises. Um, I definitely get that part. So I'm curious, like, you being a doctor, when you go to the doctor for yourself, are you like, knowing that they're trying to sell you on the health, are you like pushing back extra, or do you kind of, acknowledge like, hey, they're the professional in this case, I'm the patient? Do you take yourself out of wearing a doctor hat when you go to the doctor yourself?
Oh Lord. Okay, good question. So I mean, when I'm sitting in front of my doctor, I don't think they're trying to sell me something. It doesn't come across that way, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
we're doing it because we care about the people we take care of. And yes, my doctor knows I'm a doctor. So we have conversations like colleagues. They
Mm.
often will say things with the caveat, do you have a different opinion? What do you think? So it's a little different because they already know off the bat who I am. So
Mm-hmm.
I yeah, so I take their advice, I ask questions, because that's what I tell all my patients. Make sure you ask questions. Don't say they said and you're not even sure. It's better, and doctors may be in a hurry, but if you ask a direct question, they should answer you, and they will. So I ask lots of questions and I take their advice because I don't know
Got it.
everything. Last time I checked.
Yeah, got it. No, that makes sense. So you, like you said, you keep it as a conversation, and then the reason why I asked you that is because for Glow Pediatrics, you being a parent, you are a parent yourself, but then a lot of your services are around parents and the needs of their little ones.
Right.
So I'm curious, like, um, do you feel like you have to take off your parent hat in order to do your job at Glow Pediatrics, or do you feel like that's a superpower or strength for you to add on to the way you quote unquote sell to the parents around the value? How do you look about yourself being a parent for this business?
Oh, it's the best thing ever because I show up as my whole self. My whole self includes me, the parent first, because I always introduce myself as a mom first. So me first, me being a mom, me being a mother of a teenager, um, me being a business owner, me being a pediatrician. So I show up as all of those things. And yes, I give examples from my own personal life to my patients. The quote unquote selling, yes, I tell them, see, my daughter did this too. I'm going through the same thing. There is no book for parenting. And I don't claim to know all the answers, but at least I have experience as being a parent, right? And I've done extra training, and that combination definitely is what is a winning combination because I'm not separating myself as this separate two things. That's what makes me the pediatrician that I am, being a parent. Yeah.
Got it. I think that's nowadays I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. I think nowadays people do go into challenges and they say, "Hey, I'm just going to take on the challenge." And then it's like, well, do you have experience with it? Is this speaking to you? And they're like, no, I just want the challenge of creating a business for this. Right. And for parents, for anything medical, for anything health in particular, you mentioned the experience with the doctor. One of the questions, I asked a lot of questions myself of my doctor, and it's like, well, if you were in this situation, would you take this yourself? Like, you're giving me this advice. I hope that you would be giving it, like you would be doing the same thing if taking your own medicine, quote unquote. Yes. And so I think that's like the way you just explained it. Like it's one of those things. Like this is a business you can see yourself using, and it's not necessarily you just solving a problem for somebody else.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I often end when I talk to my patients, I'm like, if this was my kid, this is what I would do, because they even ask me that, would you give your kids this or that? And I say, yeah. If it was I don't even wait for them to ask. I tell them, and I believe in I'm being truthful and I'm being honest. And I'm like, yeah, if this is my kid, they won't be here. They will be in the children's hospital. When I work in the hospital, I say that to them. I'm like, no, I'm not keeping your kid here because I feel your kid needs higher level of care. If that was my kid, that's where my kid will be. So definitely, I feel like my life is preparing me to help my kids in my practice.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I love that a lot. One thing that just came to mind, you mentioned health, and that's at the heart of what doctors do. I noticed one thing recently, taking my little one to the doctor, they don't give candy anymore at the doctor's office. Is candy a no-no now, Dr. Eko?
Well, candy doesn't really help you. I love to talk about brain, right? The health of the brain. The brain does not like the sugar. The brain does not like all those dyes in the candy. It just messes up with your brain, and not just your brain, with your tummy. And whatever you put in your mouth that goes in your tummy will eventually end up in your brain. So if you want your kid to build up all these things that we know are not good, then yes, you can hand it to them. If you don't want that, then you not do that. Yeah, so I taught my 3-year-old that blueberries was God's candy. And if you see this girl eating blueberries and she announces it loudly to anybody that will listen, blueberries is God's candy. And she doesn't look for candy. She looks for fruit because it's what they see, right? My kids, I have fruits for snack. There's no candy. Yes, are they tempted when they see candy? Yes. But of course it's controlled. I mean, yes, they may get a piece at school, but there's none at home. So for the most part, they're not getting it unless somebody else gives it to them. So, but then they grow up with that, understanding why. It's telling them the why. So I explained to her why, and she can actually tell you what blueberries do to your brain, how it helps protect your brain from infections. So it goes back to us as teachers, seeing ourselves as our kids' teachers. We can't tell them don't eat candy and then we're eating candy or we're drinking sodas. So I don't know if that answered your
No,
question.
you did. Nah, you dropped another gem. Blueberries are God's candy. That
Yes.
is something I'm taking a mental note. I'm going to be using that with my little one.
Good.
But I think like you just touched on like the evolution of like there's a way that we can teach now. Obviously, 20 years ago, whatever, decades ago, whatever couple years ago. Maybe I shouldn't try to date myself. They were giving us candy all the time. Whether it was a doctor, whether it was the dentist, it didn't matter. They were giving us candy. They're giving us shots. They weren't
Right.
giving us shots. They were giving us candy. So there's this evolution going on, and I think what's cool is that for the medical space, for doctors, I'm seeing more and more doctors kind of evolve and kind of, take the step of having their own business and going down the path that you're going down. So I'm curious, like for you, obviously you've been on a TED Talk stage, right? For certain topics, like you mentioned earlier. Like, what would your TED Talk be for doctors, in terms of going the route like that you've gone in terms of starting your own practice, starting your own business? Like, what has it allowed you to do? Being a business owner that other doctors should know about.
Oh, yeah. Great question. So, my TEDx for doctors is you can do this. Yes, we're not trained to be business people, but we can absolutely learn anything we put our minds to. And if you're looking for time freedom, if you're looking for family freedom, if you're looking for location freedom, if you're looking to be able to serve people the way you've always dreamed about doing it, then it's a no-brainer. You start your own practice. I mean, even if you're employed and you want to do something different and you feel like there's something else you want to do, take a leap of faith and do it, because then you find that your life is so much more fulfilled. And is it hard? Yes, but we're going to do it anyways, right? Medical school was extremely hard, but we all made it. So if we can do medical school, we can definitely do this. So
I love that. Short and sweet. And what I'm hearing, we had Dr. Robin Collin on earlier this season. Within the season one, we had Dr. Kiki on as well, from Doctors Under the Radar. She was talking about doctors' mental health. During the pandemic, it seems like there was a lot that was thrown at our medical professionals. We all know it. And so, medical professionals probably felt to some like they worked like a decade within like 3 or 4 years. Like there was this increased intensity, right, Dr. Eko? And I think that, I think the shining light from that is that people are going to look, to your point, for some of those freedoms in terms of family, in terms of life balance, and they're going to take that gamble on themselves and start their own business. So it's going to be cool to see. Are there any tools? Is there anything out there that helped you hit the ground running a little bit quicker than otherwise? If you didn't have it, it would have taken you a little bit longer to get the company up and running. Like, what's something that alleviated some pressure points for you so you can focus on it and get the business off the ground and do what you love to do with the little ones?
yeah, definitely finding somebody who's doing what it is you want to do and doing it well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so many groups of doctors who have set up all sorts of businesses in all industries, name it. Stocks, real estate, manufacturing, it runs the gamut. So yes, it's important to find somebody who knows who's doing what you would like to do and has been doing it. So I invested in a coach, several actually, and also just extra training. Like I mentioned, I went back and I did training for integrative pediatrics just so I could learn more about how to get to the root cause of what's making kids sick and address it instead of just medicating. So definitely being willing to go back to learning. And of course, it's nothing like medical school, trust me. Medical school is a league by itself, but definitely find people who are doing what you you want to do. And if any docs out there hear this and they have questions about where, how, reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to talk with you. So
God, that's good. And I can, already from the conversations prior to this interview that me and Dr. Eko have had with some of her peers, even, her network is robust. And so I appreciate you throwing that out there, Dr. Eko, for all those folks listening in, to definitely make sure that they touch base with you. That's a resource in itself when somebody extends that, that olive branch, that hand,
Right.
and take advantage when you can. I do something similar in podcasting. All right, people don't believe it, but podcasting, most people out there who think that they figured out podcasting, they probably haven't, and they're just doing it their own way. And that's figuring it out, right? But you got to have people within your circle. I have quite a few podcasters that I go to talk about technology. What are the latest and greatest tools? How to getting the message out around their brand. And so that's industry agnostic. It doesn't matter what industry, some of the things all the things you just said, Dr. Eko, could be applied, whether somebody's starting a business, running a podcast, have a 9 to 5. And so I appreciate you for giving the folks all these gems. I'm still stuck on the blueberries is God's candy.
You should do some yourself.
Yes. I think right after this, I will be going out to get some blueberries. You definitely convinced me. You're a salesperson, Dr.
Eko. Thank you. I need
you really are. Like, if you can sell something to like a little one, oh my gosh, like that is like the ultimate sales.
Right.
What else is there?
Oh, and I want to say thank you. You're just talking about helping people with podcasting. You were so kind to talk with me because I will be starting my own podcast soon. And you spent your time talking with me about it. So I thank you again.
Yeah, we're going to get you going. People know, we've had other podcasters on the platform. I'm excited about the growth in podcasting. Someone such as yourself having a business, using podcasting as like another channel where you get your message out. There's so much you can do in the pediatric space with a podcast, and so I'm really excited. The angle that you're thinking from being a parent, you really focus on the time with the little ones as well. Like I'm here to support. I'm putting that out there. Can't wait for you. Figure out how we launch that, and then we get that to our listeners as well.
Okay.
Outside of that, what else?
My book. Can I talk to you about my book?
Yes, you can. Let's go.
So I wrote a book called Children's Love Letters, a pediatrician's guide for parents on how your child spells love. So basically, it's just a book full of short stories, and just simple, sweet tips on how your child spells love, because every child spells love differently. Every child is different. Even when I have 3 kids, they're all completely different kids. And so each of them has a different way in which they spell love to them. Some kids spell love as time. I know those are the ones. Well, what I did was take the alphabet, and with each alphabet, tell the parents how your child is spelling love with that. I use the word. But yeah, so it'll be up on Amazon in April of 2023. Yeah, so next month. So
got it. Yeah, so that's good. Like I'm glad you plugged that in there. Thanks for coming on the platform and selling yourself. That's what the platform is about. We'll definitely make sure we include a link to that when it releases. But I'm excited to hear you're using all these different channels, all these different avenues to really get the message out. And I know you're gonna pour all that into Glow Pediatrics, and that'll ultimately allow you to do more of what you want. Like You've been speaking this whole time, doing, opening up your schedule to do more. If you want to do more with family, just life balance, whatever, you're definitely using the most of this entrepreneur journey. It's not easy, as you pointed out. So I also appreciate you letting folks know the real, the good, the bad that comes along with it. But yeah, that's dope that you're releasing this book. We're going to make sure we get that to our listeners as well. How can folks stay connected with the brand, maybe even reach out for services? what's the area right now that the services are available? Give folks a little bit about that.
Okay, so thank you for that. Yes, so Glow Pediatrics right now is based in Oklahoma, right? So I'm licensed to see patients in the state of Oklahoma. But the other thing I do is I provide training for teachers on brain health because our teachers need all the help they can get and all the support they can get to help our children do better, right? Because your teachers spend 8 hours or 7 hours a day with your kid. But that I do nationwide. I talk to teachers all over the country about brain health, how they can boost their brain health, how they can help their students boost their brain health so that the students learn better. So, but to reach me, yes, glowpediatrics.com is the easiest way to reach me. Yes. I'm also on Facebook at Glow Pediatrics. I'm on LinkedIn at Dr. Hokehe Eko. I'm also on IG at Glow Pediatrics.
Got it. So you got Glow Pediatrics across the board. I'm pretty sure when I typed in Glow Pediatrics on Google, there may have been some ads, but in terms of like that first spot, I think you were right there. So it's always good. That's always good placement. I love the name. It stands out for sure. So you did a great job there. In terms of the last thing, I just want to say, I appreciate you coming on the platform, Dr. Eko. I want to pass it to you one more time. Like, what do you want our listeners to leave this conversation with? You touched on it. We're probably going to have some doctors listening in. We're going to have some people on the fence about starting their own business. Like, what can you tell those folks tuning into this episode?
To have faith and believe in yourself and ask for help and take action. And that's the whole recipe to doing this thing. Yes.
Appreciate you breaking it down so in a simple way for us. Dr. Eko, it was amazing having you on the platform.
Thank you.
And blueberries are God's candy.
Yes, and they help your brain do better.
I am stuck on that, and I will be stuck on that for a long time. Thanks, folks, for tuning in to another great episode of the Beyond Normal podcast.